The definition of postmodern criticism of literary theory takes the approach that there is no correct way or guideline to read or analyze a piece of literature, and it is left up to the author or the reader to formulate their own interpretation.
Postmodern theory widens in a way critical literary theory. To illustrate, author X writes a piece of literature from his or her point of view, or the way they view the world. That makes the piece open to interpretation, because not everyone sees the world in the same way. Therefore, the postmodern theory takes the approach that there is no correct way to analyze a piece of literature, leaving it up to the author and or reader to create their own interpretation.
Postmodern literature is not clearly explained so that everyone who reads it will draw the same conclusion. It tells you a story and leaves pieces out, or doesn't tie everything together for you. It leaves the story to chance and not to craft. It plays with themes of irony, paranoia, distortion, and hyperreality. It ends up being whatever you think it is. A popular example of postmodern literature is Bret Easton Ellis's novel American Psycho. You follow the story of Patrick Bateman, a Wall Street yuppie, who throughout the story is struggling with his identity. You follow his life through his perspective as he is experiencing it. As you get further into the story, you begin to question if he is a credible narrator. It becomes unclear whether he is living his reality or if he is imagining the reality around him. In the end, you are left with your own interpretation, as the character himself isn't sure what has actually happened or didn't happen.
The definition of psychoanalytic criticism of literary theory studies the unconscious fears and desires of the characters in literary pieces by interpreting their actions and reactions to understand what drives them to act the way they do.
The psychoanalytic literary theory looks at and analyzes the psychological aspects of literature. This theory began in the 1930s, and its roots are firmly planted in the famous theories created by Sigmund Freud. These theories circulate around the effect of one's unconscious state of being and the idea that the human psyche can be looked at in three different parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. In literature, it is believed that these aspects of the psyche can give the characters personality, reveal motives, and create their overall development. The psychoanalytic theory takes away the ability to look at a literary work in a straightforward manner and instead forces one to analyze the work on deeper levels. There are two different approaches to this theory. The first is that the author's unconscious desires, wishes, and/or past traumas are portrayed within the characters of the story. The other approach is to not look at the author's unconsciousness, but solely focus upon the characters themselves and how their unconscious desires affect who they are and the actions they take, as well as analyzing how their id, ego, and superego shape their personalities and how those factor into the work as a whole.
Examples of psychoanalytic literary theories. As Sigmund Freud categorized a pleasure, realistically, and art instilled personality into three sections: id, ego, and superego. The development of the literary theory launched into an interpretive tradition. The theory focuses on the author, characters, audience, and text. For example, Freud's delusion and dreams in Jensen's Gradiva reinforces his idea that delusions and dreams interlock with one another, as well as introducing latent dream thoughts. Norbert Hanold, the protagonist, dream stems from the delusion resulting from returning repressed memories from which likings had been constructed, and that returning repressed childhood memories may manifest in the psychoconstruction of the character, whom he named Gradiva, as a compelling inclination in the form of a real character. This portrays how an individual may address the crazed portion of the personality without having to neglect the rest of the individual. William Shakespeare, Hamlet, illustrates Prince Hamlet's devoting himself to avenging his father's death, but because he is contemplative and thoughtful by nature, he delays entering into a deep melancholy and even apparent madness. Here is where Freud depicts psychoanalytic problems. Hamlet portrays procrastination and hesitation during the task at hand. However, This behavior demonstrates as humans that act on direct action will become paralyzed by overwhelming because revenge does not overweigh the conscience nor intelligence.